on people sharing their feelings, a poem called Oh Yea. It always seems like you shout your feelings like a town crier, and I proclaim my feelings like a town crier, and folk don't so much share as ring out their feelings like crowds of town criers, turning this way and that, throwing their chins to the sky to toll with a strong downward clang the feelings, summons we perpetually serve on each other. As if at the edict of some abdicating king, perhaps a stark bollock naked one, his lieutenant standing nude in the king's name too, armistice and christening, the alarum peal, I feel, I feel, I feel, I feel. On wild swimming and naked swimming and shape-shifting, nudibranch. I ease my naked body down into the rock pool's closet, clinging to the vertical rocks with my soles, hanging a moment before I let myself fall. Slowly as a dim slip that shrugs off its hanger in a deep green changing room, air shouting silently from my struck lungs, I would try on the old clothes to see if they still fit. Dropping to the velveted floor, the seizing onesie of Brillo hair, the sweat sheath that horripilates with urchinous buttons, each breaking wave, dousing me of costume, comfortably divested of my name. Perhaps still some permeable notion of self, arabesques of albumen, prongs subliming to tender flame, condensing down to antlers, and weed, and warm, and warm, and weed. And on strimming, which I believe is called weed whacking here, and politics, or particularly some politicians. Strimmer. Strimmer, you butcher. You as soul are the hardest to imagine. A poor soul, a kind soul, a good soul, easy. Soul, a deep ladle. Soul, a ladder. How intimately we tangle with our tools, grafting them into our brains like prosthesis. I'm appalled by your skinny neck, thrusting the flat howl of your face into the meadow's tangle, screaming at stinging nettle, couch grass, clover, sending flying little moth scrap souls. I can't find a thing to admire in you, thrash metal strap-on whose obsession with yield makes yielding impossible, stumbling onward in evangelical fury, roaring your hateful rhetoric. All small voices drowned out in the carnage, the fresh green blood flying in my face. You can substitute a politician of your choice for the strimmer. This is my final poem, an old poem which I wrote on a flight to Canada 2008, quite a long time ago. I was going to try and do the sums, but I can't. And I sat next to a vet who told me that in the hold of the plane were seven racehorses. I was going to say retired racehorses, 7 racehorses. And he said they're tranquilized, obviously, for the flight. And he said they'll be standing up the whole way. And that made me think about this life of poetry, which I was just embarking on then, and the improbability of it. And I said to somebody today that throughout my life, poetry has been a life that I have quite often attempted to reject in favour of something more reliable and stable. And at those moments in my life, something has always happened to drag me kicking and screaming back into a life of poetry. And here I am. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a horse as Magritte might paint him. Consider this Percheron in the climate-controlled hold, gimped up for the flight in blinkers and bridle and drugged, of course, from the creased Jupiter of his arse to the spotted dominoes of his teeth, the burden of his blood alone, the clapper seized in his brain's bell, propped up on steel and the air's goodwill. Ladies and gentlemen, will you fill your glasses? May I lead us all in a toast or a prayer. May the horse never wake that stands in mid-air. The horse never wake that stands in mid-air. Horse never wake that stands in mid-air. Thank you all so much for the welcome.